The Public Servants Association has outlined its expectations for today's meeting with government negotiators, saying another 0% wage increase offer would be an insult to the public services sector. Public sector unions have threatened to go on a nationwide strike if government does not revise its wage increase offer for the 2021 to 2022 financial year. Government and public sector unions are holding crucial wage negotiations today under the auspices of the Public Service Coordinating Bargaining Council, but the talks look set for a deadlock following government's tabling of a 0% wage increase offer last week. This could lead to a crippling strike in the public service. Unions are demanding an effective 7% wage increase. Trade union PSA says it expects government to revise its offer. Well, for more on this story, we cross to our reporter, Mbongeni Muthwa. Thanks very much, Mbongeni. You're there in Pretoria where the negotiations are taking place. What's the latest? What are you hearing so far?
Well, I can tell you that the meeting was scheduled to start at 10 o'clock this morning. We did briefly gain entry into this venue here, this unusual venue for public sector wage negotiations, which is a private country estate in Pretoria off Zambezi Drive, and then we were promptly chased away, and they called security on us to escort us out. So we've been camping outside here on the street outside the venue, and right now I'll ask the cameraman Japan Machebula to pan a little bit and show you. There is a car behind me, that BMW. That is December Mavuso's vehicle there, Mr. December Mavuso. He is the Deputy General Secretary of NEHAW, the biggest trade union in the public sector. Well, they are virtually neck and neck with the Public Servants Association now in terms of size and the big boys in terms of unions in the public sector. Mr. December Mavuso is arriving here just now. I did manage to speak quickly with him a few minutes ago, and he told me that the Deputy President of NEHAW, Mr. Mike Shingange, is also making his way here and will be arriving anytime from now. Mr. Mike Shingange is also the Vice President of COSATU. So earlier on at around 10 o'clock, we saw mainly, you can call them junior officials, but maybe we can say technocrats, people from the unions, various unions who are the actual negotiators, who sit across the table from the representatives of the employer, which is also technocrats from government. So now we've got senior leadership of the unions beginning to make their way here as well. So it looks like it's going to be a long day. And of course, as you've alluded to, the stakes could not be higher in terms of today's meeting. It's only the third meeting in this round of negotiations between the public sector unions and the government. They first met for the first time on the 1st of March last month, where the unions formally tabled their consolidated wage demand of CPI plus 4%, which is currently roughly around, or it works out to around 7%, which was for the first time as well that all the unions, under the COSATU umbrella, FEDUSA, and other independent public unions, they came together and agreed on a joint wage demand and presented that to the government on the 1st of March. Government went away and only came back last week on the 15th of April, where the government formally tabled a 0% wage offer, which of course is based on the policy of National Treasury that was announced by the Finance Minister in the budget in February, that government is adopting a position of a wage freeze in the public sector for the next 3 years. So now it's clear that there is a very, very, very high probability and a good chance that this round of negotiations will not result in an agreement or a settlement, which leaves the unions with only one option then, which is to exercise their legal right to strike, to try and force the government to accede to their demand. And yesterday we saw them coming out very clearly saying that they are more than prepared if today government does not move on their policy of a wage freeze and meet their 7% wage demand, to start the formal processes of calling for a general strike in the public service and bringing public services to a standstill. So we're waiting to see what's going to happen. Of course, there's a lot of firsts, as we've mentioned earlier. It's the first time that these negotiations have been moved from the SABC offices in Pretoria, where traditionally they've always allowed for media access, for media to be there and broadcast and report on the crucial talks that are happening. This venue here does not allow for media access. Media is bad. We were chased out ourselves. We are the only reporters present here, which is unprecedented. It's me and the cameraman, Padma Chebula from SABC, only who are here. There is no reporter or anyone from the media, from all the other media houses, on a day like this. It's unheard of. So we don't know. We're here. We'll wait and see as the day unfolds. And of course, the main thing is the outcome. What happens at the end of the day? But an agreement, it doesn't look like there's going to be an agreement at the end of the day. No?
Yeah. Mbongeni, what about the Minister of Public Service? He hasn't exactly helped things, has he? Because he also came out with a statement yesterday or the day before basically saying that there's no money. So it does look as though, and there's no plan B if negotiations with the unions, you know, if there's no meeting of minds, there's no plan B. So where to?
Absolutely, Nambu. There is a steadfastness and a consistency in the government position. Beginning last year already, from last year's budget that was delivered by Finance Minister Mbongeni in Parliament in February last year, where he made the shocking announcement that government would not be honoring the last leg of the wage agreement that was signed in 2018. Unprecedented that you have a situation like that, an agreement that was signed and sealed, having been implemented the first 2 years of it. Then the third year, government comes and says, we don't have the money to honor the last leg. We just can't afford it, so we're just not going to honor it. And since then, of course, you come to this year, the budget again, where the finance minister comes out and announces that it's a wage freeze for the next 3 years. A position that was underlined by the Minister of Public Service Administration, Mr. Sendo Mchunu, in an unprecedented move to come out on the eve of a crucial meeting at the SABC between the employer, the government, and the unions. A minister comes out publicly and says, we're not moving. We've said there is no money. Our position is not going to change. And then he went on and made a long address and speech, basically trying to convince the public of government's position, and also that the public should sympathize and support the government position against what the unions are demanding here. Of course, we saw how came out guns blazing last night with a statement basically accusing government of union bashing and declaring war on workers in the public service and unions, and saying that they are going to respond likewise or in kind and give the government the war that they deserve. So already talk of a strike to bring public services to a halt coming into this meeting have reached fever pitch. There is, of course, the provision in the Labour Relations Act that essential services, which most of government departments are not allowed to strike. Maybe the government is testing the strength of the unions based on that knowledge of that provision, that essential services are not allowed to strike. If unions call for a strike tomorrow, nurses are not allowed to participate in the strike. The police are not allowed to participate in the strike. Soldiers, likewise. So it's a very uncertain period that we're moving into in the months ahead in terms of exactly what's going to happen in the country under the current conditions of the pandemic, of course, the weak economy and so on, in terms of whether we are going to see unions actually downing tools and embarking on a general strike in the public service in the coming months.
Mbongeni, thank you very much for that analysis, and all the very best being out there on your own with Japan.